Hey everyone, TV Shores here. It's May the 12th, 2015. I wanted to get back to you and pick up on some of these things I wanted to point out about Satan's symbols or his mocking and mimicking of God. First thing I want to go to, though, is I want to back up just a little bit to where the Lord first drew my attention to the opening up of the matrix. The Lord kept bringing my mind back to this, and it had to do with Exodus, where we see before the Israelites come out of the land of Egypt, we see that the blood was required on the doorpost of the Israelites, the children of God, so that when the destroyer came, it would pass over. It's about Passover. See, everything connects back to Passover. I'm hoping to be able to get that message across as I continue on with these videos, and I'm hoping to do it in a speedily way, but there's a lot of stuff I have to cram in my head first. But the thing I want to point out here is in Exodus 13:15, it says, "And it came to pass when Pharaoh would have hardly let us go, that the Lord slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all that openeth the matrix, being males, but all the firstborn of my children I redeem." Okay, opening up the matrix is about the womb. The womb is about where the spirit and the flesh come together. And when you come out in the birthing process, it is about coming through into the matrix of this world. And what the Lord is trying to get me to convey is all these symbolisms of Satan is about the matrix that we live in, and how Satan has tried to exalt himself as God since the very beginning, when he tempted Eve and she took of the fruit and then gave it to Adam. But the point I want to make with this is it's talking about the firstborn. When we go down to Numbers 3:12, it says, "And behold, I have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel instead of all the firstborn that openeth up the matrix among the children of Israel. Therefore the Levites shall be mine." Okay, with everything the Lord has taught me, what I take out of this verse is the firstborn, okay, the Lord has exchanged that for the Levites, okay? And we are the Levites. The bride is the Levite, priest, and the Levites, you see this? The Levites are the firstborn, the first fruits that will open up the matrix, is what I'm trying to get spoken out here. I'm not doing the best job of it. It's in my head very well. It's just getting it out that's hard to explain. But if you look at Exodus 13:15 and Numbers 3:12 and read the surrounding verses, it helps you to understand how the Exodus was the blood covering. And because it spared the firstborn, then God claimed those as his. But then later in Numbers, God exchanged the firstborn for the Levites, and how the Levites would play an important role in the priesthood of the future. Okay? And we are those Levites. The bride is those Levites. And it's about opening up the matrix in reverse. Okay? And it goes back to reversing the curse. We came flesh to spirit. excuse me, spirit to flesh. When we came into the womb, the spirit came into flesh and was born into the matrix. What is fixing to happen is a birth process, but kind of in reverse of that. Instead of spirit to flesh coming into this world, we are flesh going to spirit leaving this world. Does that make sense? I'm hoping it does. If you have any questions, get to me. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm just trying to explain what the Lord has shown me, and how it fits in my mind doesn't always come out as gracefully through my mouth. But having explained that, I want to move on to show some more things within our matrix of this world where Satan has set up his own plan of things, his own little matrix in this world. And we're going to start right here. I'm going to go back to the Twin Towers for a minute. The Twin Towers was symbolism of Satan declaring his equality, trying to exalt himself to be equal to God. Okay, one thing I want to show you, speaking of that, is we're going to go to this. The Twin Towers is the picture of that. Being equally exalted. He wanted to be equal to God. I'm telling you, from what God has shown me, this is the seat of Satan in this modern day world. Okay? We're not talking about history. We're talking about now. Things as we know it in the modern world of man and in this matrix. So Satan is kind of telling a story with where he's got his seat set. Here he is symbolizing that he is equal to God. But then we see on this one tower in 1978, this tower received a crowning, so to speak, where an antenna was positioned on top of it, which exalted it higher than the first. Now, a thing I find interesting is here, it's the North Tower with an antenna. Okay? The North Tower would be symbolic of the Lord, because the north would indicate up in the heavens. That's where God dwells. Okay. Or in heaven. I don't quite know how to explain that, so don't argue with me on it. You understand the point I'm trying to make there, okay? And then it goes on to say, all 7 buildings of the World Trade Center complex are partially visible. Refer to the map below. So we're going to scroll down to the map below. And here we go. So we saw that with the Twin Towers, it was like Satan trying to paint a picture of him exalting himself to be equal to God. It was him declaring his equality. And then the antenna was placed on it in 78, which didn't set very well with him, because we know that 9/11 happened and the destruction came. But I'll get into that in a minute. I want to point out here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 buildings within the World Trade Complex. This is another one of Satan's symbols, as we see in creation. A lot of what Satan has set up in his symbology, trying to be equal to God, goes back to things within Genesis. But here we see the 7 buildings, which is pointing us back to the 7 days that God took to create, to make his creation. And then on the 7th day, he rested. So the beginning speaks of 7 days. So he's mimicking this by 7 buildings, okay? And once we look at that, let me get back to my notes here. We see that on 9/11, the towers collapsed. They were destroyed. And we can clearly see that was a sacrifice of what he had set up, as well as a sacrifice of human life. Okay, the next thing that I want to say about that is that the point in destroying this, it's about destroying what he created and restoring it. Just as the Bible teaches us that God will destroy what is on this earth and restore it. That is what Satan is mimicking here. As we go on, let's look at some more of my notes here. We see that that's what I just discussed about how Satan destroyed it so that he could go back and restore it in a mimicking of God, restoring what he had created, destroying and restoring. But the whole purpose, the end purpose, is something I've yet to get all the facts together on, and it's a lot, so I'm trying to figure out how to condense it down into just a video or two. But it's about Satan exalting himself as God. I mean, not as God, but above God. I should have put above God here. Sorry about that. And when he destroyed the towers, it was all about him being done. Like I put right here. It was Satan stating he was done. He was finished with trying to be equal to God. He wants to exalt himself above God. That's the purpose of the One World Trade Center. One World Trade Center. Okay? He is attempting to exalt himself above God, declaring he is the only one, rather than as before we saw the Twin Towers was symbolic of him declaring equality with God. With this One World Trade Center, it's all about going in the direction of the New World Order. It's all about him exalting himself above God, or trying to. You know, it has to do with, let me point out right quick. Here we see in Scripture, and I just use this as an example. We see it throughout Scripture. Romans 14:11, where it speaks of every knee shall bow. That is what Satan is wanting to achieve. Every knee to bow to him. That's going to happen through, or he thinks it's going to happen through the New World Order and the Antichrist. And I'm going to cut this off here, and we'll pick up here when I get back. Bye-bye.